Okay, let's be real. You've heard this advice a million times, maybe from a friend, a magazine, or even your grandma. If you want someone to like you, you gotta play hard to get. Make them work for it. But is that age-old wisdom actually true? We're gonna dive in and find out.
It turns out the answer isn't a simple yes or no. I mean, for decades, popular culture has sworn by this strategy. But when researchers actually put it to the test, they found a much more complicated and honestly, way more fascinating story. So what does the science actually say?
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to tackle 5 key things. First, we'll define what we're even talking about with a universal dating puzzle. Then we'll get into the psychology of scarcity. After that, the really crucial part, the commitment switch. Then we'll find the moderate sweet spot, and we'll wrap it all up with strategy versus sincerity.
All right, so before we can even figure out if it works, we need to be on the same page. What does playing hard to get actually mean in practice?
Well, researchers Peter Jonassen and Norman Lee give us this pretty solid definition. They call it a specific mating tactic. And the key phrase here is the impression of being uninterested. This isn't about genuinely not caring, it's a strategic performance, right? It's designed to make you seem more valuable and, in theory, make someone else want you more.
And here's what that looks like in the wild. You know these moves. Intentionally waiting a while to text back, making sure your calendar seems pretty packed, or maybe showing some interest and then just pulling back a little. The common thread through all of these is creating this sense that your time and attention are limited resources.
So why would appearing less available even work? Well, the answer is rooted in this really powerful psychological principle that honestly affects us every single day, and we often don't even realize it.
This right here is the scarcity principle. It was famously outlined by the psychologist Robert Cialdini, and it's basically a fundamental shortcut our brains use. If something is rare or hard to get, we just automatically assume it must be more valuable.
What's really wild is how universal this is. You see it everywhere in marketing, right? Limited time offer, or only 3 left in stock. And these tactics work because our brains are wired to be more motivated by the fear of losing something than by the idea of gaining something. It's pure fear of missing out.
And this is the exact same button that playing hard to get pushes. By creating this illusion of scarcity, a person can basically signal that they're a high-value product in the dating marketplace. They have options, their time is precious, and therefore, they must be more desirable.
Okay, so scarcity makes things seem more valuable. Case closed, right? Play hard to get, it works. Well, not so fast, because when you apply this to actual human relationships, a really fascinating and crucial complication pops up. See, the strategy doesn't just create one simple feeling in the person who's after you. It actually pulls them in 2 totally different emotional directions at the exact same time.
A 2014 study made this absolutely critical distinction. Playing hard to get can crank up someone's wanting. That's the motivation, the drive, the thrill of the chase. But, and this is a huge but, it can simultaneously decrease their liking. The genuine, warm, affectionate feelings they have for you. So you might make them want to chase you more, but actually like you less.
And that creates a paradox, doesn't it? How can this strategy ever work if it's killing affection? What is the secret ingredient that decides if the chase is worth it or if the person just gives up and walks away? It all comes down to this one thing. It completely hinges on whether or not the other person is already psychologically committed to the idea of a relationship with you. This is what we're calling the commitment switch. If someone is already invested, if they've already decided they're into you, then making them work a little harder actually increases their motivation. They're wanting. But if they're not committed yet, if they're still kind of on the fence, the strategy completely backfires. It crushes their motivation and their affection. They just move on.
But wait, there's more. Even when someone is committed, there's still another layer to this whole thing. It's not just if you play hard to get, it's about how hard you play it.
Think of it like a video game. If the game is way too easy, you get bored. But if it's impossibly difficult, you just get frustrated and quit. Well, human attraction works in a surprisingly similar way. This graph shows it perfectly. Researchers found that attraction doesn't just go up and up in a straight line as someone gets harder to get. Nope. It follows this inverted U-shape. Over on the left, you've got no deterrence. The person is too easy, and attraction is low. Way over on the right, high deterrence. They seem totally unattainable, and attraction just plummets. The peak, the magic, is right there in the middle.
So the most desirable partner isn't the one who's always available, and it's not the one who's never available. It's the one who is selectively available, the person who presents a moderate, achievable challenge. It signals high value, but it doesn't signal impossibility.
All right, so we've looked at the what, the why, the when, and the how much. So after all of this, what's the ultimate takeaway from the research on playing hard to get?
It really comes down to these 3 key points. 1, it's a real thing, grounded in the powerful psychology of scarcity. 2, it is super conditional. It only really works to boost motivation if the other person is already on board. And 3, there's an absolute sweet spot. Being too aloof, too distant, it will backfire.
So, in the end, playing hard to get is not the simple, foolproof trick that we're often told it is. It's actually a pretty high-risk, high-reward strategy that requires a delicate touch and a good read on the other person. If you get the timing or the intensity wrong, it can definitely do more harm than good.
And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. While understanding all these dynamics is fascinating, it does make you wonder. In our search for real, authentic connection, how much room should there really be for calculated games? It's something to think about.